Why do we remember Rome? Its legions, its gladiators, its sprawling cities. We study its rise and fall, its emperors, and its engineering marvels. When we think of a great empire, Rome is often the first name that comes to mind. At its peak, the Roman Empire covered an impressive 2.5 million square miles. A colossal achievement, no doubt. But what if I told you this is just one chapter in a much larger story? What if there were empires that dwarfed Rome, some more than twice its size, whose names are often just footnotes in our history books? Today, we're uncovering the stories of 7 colossal empires that history, at least in the West, seems to have forgotten. Our journey begins with an empire that was already ancient when Rome was just a fledgling republic, the Achaemenid Persian Empire. Flourishing from 550 to 330 BC, this empire, founded by Cyrus the Great, was a true titan of the ancient world. At its zenith, it stretched across a staggering 5.5 million square miles, more than double the size of the Roman Empire. It connected 3 continents, from the Balkans in the west to the Indus Valley in the east. Think about that. While Rome was still fighting for control of the Italian peninsula, Persia commanded an empire that was home to an estimated 44% of the entire world's population at the time. The Persians were pioneers in governance. They established the first major postal service, the Royal Road, and practiced a level of religious and cultural tolerance that was unheard of. So why is Persia often cast merely as the villain in Greek stories, like the Battle of Thermopylae? A big part of it is that our historical narrative has been overwhelmingly shaped by Greek and Roman sources. Since they were Persia's main rivals, we've inherited their perspective. History, as they say, is often written by the victors, or in this case, by the most influential storytellers. But the ruins of Persepolis and the administrative genius of the Achaemenids tell a different story, one of a truly global superpower that laid the groundwork for many empires to come. Next, we leap forward in time to the 7th century AD to witness one of the most explosive expansions in human history, the Umayyad Caliphate. Emerging from the Arabian Peninsula after the death of the Prophet Muhammad, the Umayyads forged an empire in a breathtakingly short period. From 661 to 750 AD, in less than a century, their domain grew to cover over 5.8 million square miles. This vast territory stretched from Spain and North Africa in the west, all the way to the borders of modern-day India and China in the east. It was larger than the Ramang Empire at its peak, and it was built in a fraction of the time. The Umayyad Caliphate wasn't just about conquest. It was a crucible of culture and science. Cities like Damascus and Cordoba became dazzling centers of learning, art, and architecture, preserving and building upon the knowledge of the Greeks and Persians. This era helped ignite the Islamic Golden Age, a period of immense intellectual and scientific progress. Yet, in many Western history classes, this colossal empire is often glossed over or reduced to a simple story of Moorish invaders in Spain. This Eurocentric view overlooks the fact that for centuries, the heart of civilization, innovation, and power was not in Europe, but in the sprawling, dynamic world of the Caliphate. Now we travel east to 13th century China, where a new dynasty took hold, one with foreign roots that would create an empire of immense scale, the Yuan dynasty. Founded in 1271 by Kublai Khan, the grandson of the legendary Genghis Khan, the Yuan dynasty was the Chinese successor state to the vast Mongol Empire. While technically a part of the larger Mongol dominion, it functioned as its own colossal empire, ruling over China and its surrounding territories. At its peak, the Yuan dynasty controlled nearly 6 million square miles. To put that in perspective, you could fit the Roman Empire into Yuan China more than twice over. Kublai Khan established his capital in what is now modern-day Beijing, building a magnificent city known as Dadu. His reign was a unique period where Mongol traditions blended with Chinese culture. It was a time of relative stability, known as the Pax Mongolica, which allowed for unprecedented trade and communication between East and West, famously documented by the Venetian traveler Marco Polo. Despite its massive size and influence on world trade, the Yuan dynasty is often seen as a mere interlude in the long history of China, or overshadowed by the more famous conquests of Genghis Khan. But its scale and its role in connecting two halves of the world make it an empire truly worthy of our attention. Let's sail back to Europe, to an empire born from the Age of Discovery, the Spanish Empire. Beginning in the late 15th century with the voyages of Columbus, Spain built a global empire of unprecedented scope. It wasn't the largest in terms of contiguous land, but it was the first truly global one. By the early 19th century, the Spanish Empire controlled an astonishing 7.7 million square miles of territory across 5 continents, including vast swaths of North and South America, the Philippines, and territories in Africa and Europe. It was famously known as the empire on which the sun never sets. For over 300 years, Spanish galleons laden with silver from the Americas fueled the European economy and funded massive artistic and architectural projects back home, leading to the Spanish Golden Age. This empire profoundly and permanently reshaped the world, connecting ecosystems, cultures, and peoples in what is known as the Columbian Exchange. Its influence on language, religion, and culture is still dominant in much of the world today. While we certainly learn about Columbus and the conquistadors, the sheer scale of the Spanish Empire, more than 3 times the size of Rome's, is often not fully appreciated. Its gradual dissolution over the 19th century means it lacks the dramatic fall that makes Rome's story so captivating, but its legacies arguably just as impactful. Returning to Asia, we find another dynasty in China that created an empire of staggering proportions, the Qing dynasty. Founded in 1644 by the Manchu people from the northeast, the Qing would become the last imperial dynasty of China. Over their long reign, they expanded China's borders to their greatest extent in history, creating a massive multi-ethnic empire. At its height in the 18th century, the Qing Empire spanned 5.7 million square miles, incorporating Tibet, Mongolia, and Xinjiang. Not only was it more than twice the size of the Roman Empire, but it also lasted for 268 years, a duration comparable to many of Rome's most stable periods. The Qing dynasty presided over a long period of peace and prosperity, during which the population of China tripled. The art and culture of this era, from intricate porcelain to grand imperial palaces like the Forbidden City, are world-renowned. So why doesn't the Qing Empire hold the same place in our imagination as Rome? Part of the reason is that its later years were marked by what China calls the Century of Humiliation, a period of internal strife and foreign encroachment that culminated in its collapse in 1912. This narrative of decline often overshadows the story of its immense power and longevity, leaving its true scale unappreciated in popular history. Now, let's turn our attention to the vast, cold north and an empire defined by its sheer, relentless expansion across a continent, the Russian Empire. From the Tsardom of Muscovy, Russia grew steadily, expanding eastward across Siberia to the Pacific and westward into Europe. By the end of the 19th century, the Russian Empire was an absolutal leviathan. In 1895, it covered 8.8 million square miles, stretching from the Baltic Sea to the Pacific Ocean. That's nearly 1/6 of all the land on Earth. An empire of this size is almost incomprehensible. You could fit the Roman Empire within its borders 3.5 times. The Russian Empire was a world of contrasts of opulent palaces, like the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg, and the harsh, frozen expanse of Siberia. Of brilliant composers like Tchaikovsky and writers like Tolstoy, alongside a society built on serfdom. Its immense size made it a major player in European and Asian politics for centuries. Its end came abruptly with the revolution in 1917, which transformed it into the Soviet Union, Perhaps because its story flows directly into the more recent history of the USSR and the Cold War, the sheer imperial scale of the Tsarist era is often overlooked. It wasn't just a country. It was a continent-spanning empire of immense power and diversity. Finally, we arrive at the largest of them all, the empire that, in terms of contiguous land, has no equal in human history, the Mongol Empire. In the 13th century, under the leadership of Genghis Khan and his descendants, nomadic horsemen from the steppes of Central Asia erupted onto the world stage. In a span of just a few decades, they forged the largest contiguous land empire ever known. At its zenith around 1279, the Mongol Empire covered a mind-boggling 9.3 million square miles, stretching from the Sea of Japan to the plains of Hungary. That is nearly 4 times the size of the Roman Empire. This empire redrew the map of the world. It connected civilizations, revitalized the Silk Road, and enabled the transfer of technology, goods, and ideas on an unprecedented scale. While often remembered for their brutality and conquest, the Mongols also established a period of stability and communication across Eurasia, the aforementioned Pax Mongolica. So why isn't the Mongol Empire, the undisputed champion of land empires, as central to our historical narrative as Rome? Its decentralized nature and its rapid fracture into smaller khanates, like the Yuan dynasty we discussed, meant it lacked a single, enduring cultural and political center like the city of Rome. Its legacy is more diffuse, spread across the vast lands it once ruled. So there you have it. The Achaemenid, the Umayyad, the Yuan, the Spanish, the Qing, the Russian, and the Mongol empires. Our history is often a matter of perspective, shaped by the stories we choose to tell and the cultures that tell them. The legacy of Rome is undeniable. Its impact on Western law, language, and thought is profound. But our world is far bigger than that. History is not a single story, but a magnificent, sprawling tapestry woven with the threads of countless civilizations. By remembering these other giants, we gain a truer, more complete picture of our shared human story. Which of these empires surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey through history, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.